Hello there, and welcome to the Outside Film Podcast, where we talk film, TV, games, and all that jazz like there's no tomorrow. This week we're talking about Doctor Strange. My name is Tom, and as always, going too fast. I'm joined by my co-host John.
Da, 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 da. Oh, I thought we were scared.
We're doing a
hello.
scat now.
I'm a scat man.
We are doing 2016's Doctor Strange. Finally, we're getting there. Next week's going to be Multiverse of Madness. At long last. It was promised, it was foretold in the stars, but for now we have to talk about what is probably one of the most like mediocre Marvel films. Generally I didn't have any huge like emotions about this. I didn't think it was like incredible. I didn't think it was horrible. It just kind of sat in the middle for me. Like, what did you think?
I feel like this is like the first time. It was 2016, yeah. The first time that you see like a proper mediocre Marvel film that didn't really stick to you, and it felt like a copy and paste film. Like the first time. Like Doctor Strange has the same character journey or growth as Iron Man or Tony Stark. Like he's the billionaire. He's very smart, and then both get into an accident, and then they have to go to a place where they can practice the skills, and then they have to fight another person who has the same skills or tech or sorcery. So yeah,
this is an example of the MCU blueprint kind of just being copy and paste. This is kind of, as you said, it is very much the Tony Stark story. They have that very similar arc. Yeah, I mean, let's just kind of go through. I think that I like Doctor Strange, in all of his other appearances. I think that what he has become since this film is a pretty like strong kind of character, and he doesn't feel he feels unique. But I feel like in this one, he's just Iron Man again, which would normally like that's fine, but it's the fact that this is part of the MCU, and therefore it's very obvious that he is just Iron Man again. So like, yeah, that does definitely stick out, as especially in that opening kind of 20 minutes before, however long it is before he gets into his accident. It is just like another kind of witty, charismatic dude, and it's an overarching problem with the MCU. I think that all of these characters feel so similar.
Yeah, first Iron Man film, it just really stuck to you. But then here, if you compare to Doctor Strange in Infinity War or No Way Home or Multiverse of Madness, which I've seen, which I'm not going to spoil because
thank you.
I'm respectful.
You're holding so much power right now. You could just drop so much and they'd be like, no.
All of those are very different. What you see in Doctor Strange 2016, because Doctor Strange is a very strange character.
Out of Time Film Podcast. Come for the film talk, stay for the comedy, baby.
They have really strange character motivation arcs. I mean, in Infinity War, he was quite serious and he was not messing around. And then in No Way Home, he was, I don't know what he was doing. He was just like, hey, Peter, you want some help? He was like, yeah. And then just breaks the whole multiverse. Just like, yeah.
I definitely feel like I definitely prefer the second half, because I think there are some really, really good scenes in that second half which could make for like the scene where Stephen comes back to the sanctum and he sees the guy that he's killed and he puts the cloak of levitation on. It's just a beautiful scene. And when he argues with Mordo about killing someone, about taking an oath to save lives and having killed somebody and broken that oath, I think it's amazing, the idea of that kind of arc. But I also think that I don't feel like he truly learns, like, he learns to kind of become like, to sacrifice himself. But I still feel like he is wrapped up in this arrogance. And the whole time they're like, oh, you're too arrogant. You've got to learn selflessness. And he does kind of, but he also doesn't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like at the end when he bargains Dormammu, I can't even say it.
Dormammu! The big guy. I've come to bargain.
And then, he keeps doing it. And it quite shows that he's arrogant. So, yeah. And then there was another cool scene that I really liked, was when Strange used the time stone, the Agamotto, and that was all in reverse until the city was cleared, and they were fighting through this inverse piece of time that going through it, and then there was some people getting trapped in the walls, and then they were like fighting through like building blocks. I don't know. It was like really cool to see. And then my favorite moment was when Strange was in the ancestral plane. Yeah, talking to the Tilda Swinton's character. I forgot
The ancient one.
The ancient one, yes.
Yes,
and that was a beautiful
I
moment.
agree. Yeah, that was an absolutely amazing moment. The whole kind of like this final moment, and she gives him this kind of talking to this it isn't about you. And I think it's as I said, the second half has some incredible moments, but I feel like so many of the characters, the relationships that they have with each other are purely expositional. Like you think about Doctor Strange and Christine Palmer, I feel like they literally just exist so we can communicate to the audience that Strange is arrogant. Like I don't feel like we get like any feeling of a connection there apart from like a little bit of banter, but I don't feel like there's a really nice moment where like they're at the sink in the hospital and they're just talking to each other, and he's like, I've got to go, and I could die, and they kind of come to some sort of understanding. But I feel like none of that set up. Like we have a setup for Mordo as a villain in the future, whether that be in the Multiverse of Madness or Doctor Strange 3 or whatever. But I don't feel like we ever really got to see Doctor Strange and Mordo as friends. It was more like a student-teacher dynamic that only existed to give us exposition, with only a couple of like character moments. But again, these character moments are only for Doctor Strange. Think about the villain in this film. Caecilius is such a weak villain. He doesn't have his own like motivation. We talked about last week, Arthur Harrow in Moon Knight is very much what Caecilius could have been, but no. And I feel like it only cares about Doctor Strange, and it doesn't really give the time to all the other characters.
Caecilius, not a great villain. I agree, but Mads did play a good role of the villain. Oh yeah, the opening was when they got the book and then was like, just beheaded that guy.
Why not? Sure.
Why not? Why not? Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know what to say about Caecilius. He just didn't really stuck to me. As you said, what his motivations, he was just obsessed with Strange.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that at the end of the day, Caecilius is only there as somebody, like, kind of somebody to fight and to provide a little bit of conflict with the Ancient One tapping into the dark dimension. But I think Dormammu really is the real threat. And I have to say, I agree with you completely about the final act with the bargaining and the time stone like sequence. I think it's one of the best third act sequences in a Marvel movie, because not only does it not it doesn't stay for too long, it's only like a small-ish fight, and you've got the really interesting mechanics with the time stone, but then the bargaining sequence is just like great because it gives you so much of Stephen's arc and the completion of that arc, when he says, when Dormammu is like, you can't win, and Stephen's like, no, but I can lose and everyone on Earth will live. Like that is the solidification of his arc, and I think that's a really, really solid moment. And it's visually interesting as well. It's not like just gray and boring, and I do think the CGI is sometimes a little bit shaky, but there are some really, really cool mind-bending sequences which I think are really stand out.
Yeah, and finally we don't have to see like gray or grim color palette. Here it was like really visually beautiful, like when he was meeting Dormammu. Soundtrack score, did anything stick to your score?
There are some moments where it was really like nothing, like at the beginning when he's doing the brain surgery, for example, or he's trying to get the bullet out of the brain. That was so so boring to me. But I have to say that there are some sequences where Michael Giacchino's score is so the first time that he dons the cloak of levitation and he falls, and then the cloak goes after him and he rises up with the Doctor Strange theme. I thought that was amazing. As I said, the scene where he comes back to the sanctum and he sees the man that he's killed, I thought all of that was so well constructed. And obviously you've seen Multiverse of Madness, but I hope that Danny Elfman keeps on those motifs, but don't tell me it
slaps. So
good. That's what we want.
The score, I just felt there was like no score with Strange, but I like Doctor Strange's theme. That was pretty good. When you put the cloak on, it was like, oh my god, he's Doctor Strange, and just
they do have some really, really good like moments. But there's also one where where he puts the cloak back on and he straightens the top of it, and then it starts to flap. and it's like a really cool moment, and then it becomes like a really boring like comedy. Like I think that, as with most MCU movies, the comedy just made me want to like bang my head against a wall. Like where like Mordo gives him the piece of paper and he's like, "What is this? My mantra?" And he's like, "No, it's the Wi-Fi password. We're not savages." And I just expect a bloody laugh track. Like I oh, it just kills me inside so much.
I didn't laugh at that. I just
No.
felt whoever wrote this was trying to think of like funny things for the Wi-Fi.
We gotta do it funny.
Oh yeah, and there was another funny. The funny bit was when Strange's cloak just wipes the tear off.
Does it?
If you remember, he wipes Doctor Strange.
No, that's what I was talking about. It doesn't wipe its tear; it just starts to flap.
Oh yeah.
It is distracting, like especially when you're trying to like make Caecilius threatening. You know, like how like this villain isn't threatening when you're joking around with him, and it's a waste of Mads Mikkelsen. Like obviously we talked about Fantastic Beasts, which also wasted him, but like come on guys, come on.
Remind me that, Tom.
I'm sorry. Oh no.
So yeah, Mads Mikkelsen, he's a great actor, and he should really not be
wasted in so many things that I love. I don't know if I'd like to see him again, but I guess we could, multiverse and all that. I mean, this film does serve to a sort of introduction to the multiverse, which I think is quite fun. A lot of people, when it came out, were like, whoa, it's so trippy and cool, like with that whole sequence where Doctor Strange like is thrown through all these different realities. And obviously now it seems a bit kind of coy because it seems kind of like less impressive because of what we're used to now, but I still think it's a really, really cool sequence. And you can tell that all the CGI budget went into like that sequence and the final one with Dormammu, because there's sometimes when the green screen is really obvious.
Yeah. And what was it other bits? Nothing comes to me.
It genuinely is like just a middle of the road. Like there's nothing aggressively like horrendous about it. But there's, aside from a couple of scenes, there's nothing like generally. So I think I'd give this film a 6 out of 10. And I think the reason why I wouldn't give it a 5 is because there are some really, really good scenes in the second half that push it forward into, like a more positive kind of reaction. But again, so much of it is just like the standard comic book movie fare. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy that I'd like to say that for the most part, we're moving away from that. But I also think that Shang-Chi was quite middle of the road and very formulaic in that aspect as well. Like, I don't know. I feel like I would like to see Marvel move away from it a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I think Infinity War and Captain America: The Winter Soldier are like very different in the whole filmography. It's strange and uncomfortable.
Okay, John, that's the second time you've made that reference. That
okay,
joke.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry.
We'll leave it. Let's leave it there, please.
And yeah, there's nothing really interesting, and then you got Doctor Strange. Like, oh.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think you can be formulaic and be really kind of like interesting and good. I think about the first X-Men movie, the first Spider-Man, the first Avengers. Some of those we've talked about even recently. But I just feel like this is one that doesn't do enough to just justify its own kind of uniqueness. And I feel like its unique elements are what makes it so good, but some of the other stuff just kind of falls flat.
Yes, I agree. And there's what you said about like there's some trippy elements. Yeah, that's very tame compared to Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sam Raimi. I mean, like, what are you gonna do, really? I mean, like, I'm very excited. I watched all the Evil Dead this last week, and I'm preparing for it. So. Oh yes, it's going to be an exciting one.
Oh, yeah. It's so trippy. Like I came out of the cinemas, I was having a headache. I was like, oh my god, that was oh my god.
Good. I'm excited. I truly am. So I mean, wow, it's a short one today. Like this probably will be our shortest video yet. I mean, that just goes to show how little there is to talk about Doctor Strange. But what do you think you're gonna give it out of 10? I went 6.
5. I'm gonna go get 5 or 6. I don't know. It's just a bit hard to where they land it on because it's a great. It's not a great film. It's an okay film, but there was not interesting bits. But there wasn't interesting bits. But there was some character arcs. But there was a good character arc. 6.
6. Okay, yeah, I agree. I mean, like this used to be one of I remember we had a big discussion about what was a better film, this film or Incredible Hulk. And I haven't seen Incredible Hulk for years, but I did argue Incredible Hulk, and you argued this film. And like, yeah, I think at the time I really liked it, but I just don't know how much of it really holds up now. You know, like having rewatched it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about it, about the sequel, but like, yeah, I feel like this film will definitely not stand out as one that I'm like, oh yeah, the MCU is great. For example, Doctor Strange, it will be the other kind of films that stand out for me.
Whoever will see that, like in the future, just like, oh yeah, the best MCU film is Doctor Strange. I'm like, what?
no, sir,
no,
for it is not.
Sir, you must be talking false. You're talking false. My brother in Christ, there's Infinity War. What are you doing? And yeah.
Absolutely. So, and I also want to say, just a little aside, we don't do the weekly viewing anymore, but I want to say I've started rewatching WandaVision, and I'm 3 episodes in, and I'm really liking it so far. So I'll just leave that there. I haven't got to the bit that I don't like yet, but so far it's going well, and I hope that it's better than the first time I watched it. Fingers crossed, right? So there we go.
One film that I watched, I'll do this quickly, that I watched this week. There's lots of others that I would really wish to talk about, but there's one. It's the Eurovision film.
Oh my God, really?
No,
why?
No. Listen. I was with my mom's friends and they recommended me to watch the Eurovision film. So I had no idea what was going on, like into this, like in the film. I just don't know what happened. I just sat there, just watching the film.
Oh no!
I just never felt so confused in my life. There's elves.
What? Excuse me?
And
sure.
There's so many weird bits in the film that is not funny.
Why not? Why the hell not?
I had to pretend to be laughing. And just watching the film and just smile, and just be confused. And oh my God, this is worse than watching it. Only God Forgives, and just, oh my God, yeah. I'm not gonna rate it because I'm gonna be sitting here all day and then be like, it's a 0 out of 10. Let's end it, please. I just don't.
Oh, there goes my dog. So yes, thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more. We've got loads of Marvel content. We just did Moon Knight, and next week we're going to be doing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and then we're going to be rolling on to the summer film straight. Oh my God, my dog is going crazy. We're going to be going on to the summer slate. We're going to be doing Thor, all 4 Thor films. That's a tongue twister for you. Stick around if you want to see that. You can email us with any of your questions or comments about Doctor Strange or anything at outstimefilmpod@gmail.com. We'll read it out on the podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at outstimefilmpod. And that's everything.
Yes, and thank you for listening. Be good, be kind. There's a film that I really want to see. It's called Everything and Everything Everywhere and Everything at Once.
I've seen it.
Oh, yeah. One word
of amazing. Yeah, it was amazing, but I did think it was overhyped. I'm very sorry.
Nah. Okay. Thank you for listening, everyone. Yeah. Take given.
Give nothing back.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.